All right, professional rake stepper Eric Hovde is back in the news, this time with some comments that we're going to play for you on his views on young workers and something that explains why, of all the things he could go after, you could go after the tax cuts for the rich that blew a multi-trillion-dollar hole in the deficit, but yet he wants to go after Medicare and Social Security and things like that. Why could that be? Well, part of it, apparently, according to some new audio discovered from Eric Hovde, is that he believes that, quote, crazy technology is going to help young people live to over 100 much more frequently. And so, therefore, you have to somehow limit Social Security benefits so that they last longer. I don't know. Give a listen.
I'm also worried about Medicare and having that around for my layabout grandson.
If we don't get serious about dealing with the deficit spending, everything will go bankrupt. That's the problem.
What do you think we can do? I mean, I like what Paul Ryan was talking about privatizing, right?
Well, first of all, what you have to do is they've increased spending, during the lockdowns, they increased spending by 40% because they shut down the economy. But our population didn't grow by 40%. So after we unleashed the lockdowns at the beginning of 21, don't you think we would have brought spending back by 40%? Our population would grow 40%. So then we got to do that. Then we got to put a glide path to reduce spending. Then we got to figure out how to create better growth. How about deregulating the economy? Remember Ronald Reagan?
Right.
One of his big pushes to get the economy growing was deregulation. You talk to every business person, you talk to every farmer, they all say we're being killed by regulation. Right. So you got to do that. And then we've got to do, I was talking with the other lady, welfare reform. Remember when Clinton and Newt Gingrich did welfare reform?
Right.
And we pulled all those people that weren't working back into the workforce. Instead of giving them money, they're all of a sudden working and paying taxes.
Right.
We've got to do that. We've got to do a whole lot of things.
Yeah, right. And you think that can preserve Medicare and Social Security for
if
the
we
future?
can get our finances in place, yeah.
Okay.
Now, honestly, Social Security, somebody like me who's done well may have to forego it so everybody else.
Right.
And maybe if you're 30 or 40 years old, they add a year to, because they're going to live
raise the
long.
retirement age.
Yeah, by a year. But for people that are 50 and above, no, you don't touch the retirement age. But if you're younger, okay, you're going to live longer anyways.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, they're talking about crazy things that some of these young people could live to 100, 120 with all the new technologies that are coming.
Wow.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
All right, there's a lot to unpack in that one. So where do we go? Greg again has his head down, but let's start with, well, let's just take this in order. The whole notion of getting deficit spending under control. Again, maybe we could start with, all the billionaire tax breaks that were put out there. And yet it never is about that, is it? It's about going after seniors' retirement. It's going after healthcare. It's going after, quote unquote, welfare reform. Trust me, there is nobody right now getting anything resembling a welfare check that is doing as much damage to your future in terms of the deficit than what Eric Hovde and everybody from his income level and up is getting by being able to escape paying the fair share of taxes that you have to pay. But he also talks in there about how they shut down the economy during COVID. This one, again, just I have a special dose of rage for anybody that likes to poo-poo the pandemic and say, they shut down the economy. I mean, great teamwork, everybody. We were supposed to all be in this together. We were all supposed to stay home. We were going to spend extra to make sure that we saved lives. People stayed at home until we could get things under control. There was no vaccine. We would get people back to work. The economy would grow. All of these things happened, though in a much more fractured environment. And as a result of the way that things worked out, the U.S. economy is the envy of the world right now. You can use empty words like Donald Trump and Eric Hovde do about, there being chaos and everything else. Every other developed country would love to be the United States. in terms of where we are with inflation and employment. Doesn't mean it's done. Doesn't mean it's perfect. But don't pretend that there's any place that's any better than the United States right now for coming out of a global pandemic. It wasn't they that shut down the economy. It was a pandemic. Always the deregulation. Greg, were you able at any point in there to tell what exactly was going to be deregulated? I mean, he name dropped farmers, but I didn't clearly hear anything to deregulate that was going to magically turn the economy around. Did you catch anything there?
Not a thing. I was waiting for a specific. I mean, when it comes to Hovde, besides his antics and terrible ads, I'm always on watch for Eric Hovde's specific plans, and there's never one. Deregulation. We have to deregulate. What?
Yeah, it's
and they've done a lot of deregulating in the past 40 years since Reagan. You're shining bright, who would probably be too liberal at this point for your taste. Mm-hmm. But what, Eric? What are we deregulating? And ever since I started working for this company, when politicians, especially on the right, and I'm sorry to say this, it's true, when they start speaking about farmers, I'm like, keep their names out of your mouth. You don't help them. You don't care about them. Don't talk about farmers.
So he gets back to the young workers saying that with crazy technology, they could live to 100, 120. Okay. Is that a reason to raise the retirement age? Which Hovde is already on record saying that for workers in their 20s, he would raise the retirement age into their 70s and then some. And trust me, as somebody who just turned 60, that's not what anybody wants right now. You want the option to keep doing what you're doing, but you don't want to have to. And the whole notion of setting up Social Security and Medicare was that after giving a lifetime of service in the labor force, you could enjoy a comfortable retirement, which is not something that Eric Hovde wants. But back to when you were a young worker, he's all about, well, you know, the Affordable Care Act lets you young workers continue to have affordable health insurance by staying on your parents' plan. In Eric Hovde's mind, that's just wrong, and you know, you need to grow up.
I am.
I got it.
I am.
I love your concern about health care, and I was really wondering about Obamacare, and I know President Trump wants to repeal it, so you know, let's hope he gets to do that. But I'm really concerned, especially about that provision for that kids can stay on until they're 26. I don't think it's doing our young people much good. I mean, it just makes them lazy.
It's a stupid idea for this reason. All we're doing is delaying younger people's maturation.
Right.
And they need to grow up and move on and stand on their own 2 feet. And by the way, your lowest healthcare costs are when you're 21 to 26.
Right.
Frankly, what we should have is personalized health care that you buy when you're young that stays with you your whole life instead of having some business and then you leave that business and transfers here. It should be your health care policy that travels with you through your life.
Based on your health.
Based on your health and a lot of other factors.
Because my grandson, I mean, he's a great guy, but I think it's just like not getting him off the couch to, he's still staying at home, and I think it's not motivating, and I think it's happening to a lot of people, don't you think?
I think we have never had such a large percentage of working age Americans that are sitting on the couch and not involved.
And still living with their parents.
Yeah.
It's sad.
No. We are at a historically high level of employment. We have never had in all the time that this has been measured such a low unemployment rate and such a high level of employment in the state. But again, much like his role model, Connecticut businessman Tim Michaels, a couple of years back, he's feeling like if we just call young people lazy and couch surfers and that they should stand on their own 2 feet and afford their own health care, that will make something out of them and that will somehow appeal to the voters. But he doesn't get to the root cause of this. One of the root causes of high healthcare costs is that people in their 20s feel that they're young and bulletproof. And so they don't get health insurance And so they're not paying premiums in, which raises costs for everybody else. And then when young people do get sick, because they do get sick, and they do get into car accidents, their illnesses, injuries, layoffs, and now they don't have insurance. And to this day, again, one of the things that just gets to me, to this day, you go into a convenience store or a bar or other places with some kind of a community bulletin board, and you still see that we have to have roasted chicken dinners to help somebody pay their medical bills, because we haven't done enough to make healthcare more accessible and affordable to people. And Eric Hovde is saying, let's make it less accessible, less affordable. He says, let's get personalized plans that people can take with them from job to job, from place to place. Great idea in theory, Eric Hovde. What is your plan to do it? What is your plan to make it affordable and accessible and not a junk plan? Because that's what the Affordable Care Act does. And if you don't have a better idea than that, then you're just throwing empty words out there, trying to appeal to a group that says harumph about all the young workers, and get into the Senate where you say you're not going to be a career politician, but take a look at what your buddy Ron Johnson just did. Sorry, I still have a thing when I see the health benefit things on bulletin boards. We shouldn't need that by now.
I completely agree with you. And the notion of, well, my grandson is on the couch because of he can't get his own health insurance. Like, I just hate listening to older people jam on the younger generations, because it's just not fair. They don't know what kids are going through. You want to be a 22-year-old right now? Go ahead. I dare you.
Yeah.
In this world where retirement is not a thing they look forward to. That's not a thing. They're not going to get the gold watch. They're not going to go traveling. They're going to have to work until they're 70, because this economy is not set up for them to succeed.
Right. It's not. And so anything that we can do to make these problems better would be a much better option than simply vilifying young workers. From Matt in Germantown was at one of these benefits recently at a bar where they had a raffle for an assault rifle and a handgun.
Oh my God.
That just brings us full circle to one of the biggest things that drives up healthcare costs for young people. It's not illness. It's not injury. It's not a car accident. It's the guns. But let's raffle them off at a medical fundraiser for somebody.